Hi everyone, it's Mr. Barden here. This is going to be a hopefully short video where I'm going to be talking about getting started with using audio effects in Tone.js, specifically with the P5.js coding environment. I'm not actually going to be making any code today. It's more, some conceptual stuff and how you can implement it in your own code very, very easily. I'll have links to this page on the screen right now, as well as a textbook page that we're going to look at that's going to have examples of all of this set up. But before we hop into the effects, I want to spend just a little bit of time talking about the tone documentation, which is right here. Again, the link is in the description, or you can pause it and there's the link. That's up to you. But this right here is the reference material for the most recent version of Tone, as far as I'm aware. If there's a different version out there, someone let me know in the comments. But everything here on the left side of the screen is everything in the Tone library. So once you've included it in your P5 sketch, you have access to all of these right here that you can utilize. And there's a lot of stuff. I'm not going to go over every single one because, again, there's a lot. But we're going to be focusing mainly on effects right here, this section of objects. So just to maybe conceptualize this, as far as a computer is concerned, everything is numbers. All right, whether you're playing an audio file or generating something to be synthesized, in the computer to be output, before it gets to the digital to analog converter, before it goes to the speakers, all right, it's just a number, a series of numbers saved to the computer memory. This can be edited and changed as much as you want between, the source of the material and it going to the output speakers. So we can utilize these audio effects. They're just algorithms. You put in one number, get out a different number, in order to change the audio before it goes to the speakers so we can hear it. And that's really all digital audio effects and plugins really are, if you boil it down to essentially the basest of descriptors. So there are audio effects right here. And this is, again, just a category of these algorithms that take in numbers, output other numbers. That's really all they do. If you're used to working in DAWs, you may notice a few things under the components section. You might have noticed under your effects or plugins tabs, like, a limiter, gate, filter, things like that. So between the two sections, you can pretty much find anything you might really need to do. But in terms of, taking in audio, changing it, and outputting it as the main goal, that's this section here under effect. Components are a little bit more broad. I'm not actually going to look at any of them for right now. We're going to stick under effects. But what we can do is we can click on any of them. Let's click on distortion because that one stood out to me. And it'll show you a bit of information. Sometimes there's some code example here, sometimes there's not. It's always fun when there is an example because you can play it and hear it. That was the example. Not that much, but it makes a little. Basically, we just have to make the object and route all the audio. That's all we have to do. That wasn't the most distorted thing I'd ever heard, actually, especially since we didn't have anything to compare it to. But I'm not the one who made the example. More importantly, all of these pages have the same structure where it'll talk about the effect up front. You can learn a little bit about it, and then it has a list of everything on the page, and then they're all listed in alphabetical order. So we have the constructor and all of its bits. These are the the arguments that you can type here. So in the example, when we said, okay, the tone.distortion, okay, with 0.8 as the argument, that was the amount of distortion here, and it's just a range of 0 to 1. And that's all we have there. And if we added a second one, we could play around with some partials and stuff, and that's a little bit more complex. I usually just stick with the one. But then after that, you get all the properties together in alphabetical order, and it tells you just about all the stuff, and it'll have a reference to where it is in the code. Sometimes there's an example. Sometimes there's not. It depends on what the effect is and what the method is and who made it and all that. But this is everything that we can do. So if we wanted to connect the output of this node to the rest of the nodes in parallel, we could do that with the .fan method. So that's kind of neat. Ways to route stuff and all of that. But what I'm getting at is, as we explore these sounds, you can find the sound that you might want to work with and look into that a little bit more. The process for making all of these effects are the same. We have to, declare them, make a variable essentially, and then assign it to be a new tone dot, and then whatever the name of the effect is. So tone dot distortion, tone dot phaser, tone dot JC reverb. You can see it all right there on the screen. That's the process. We're just making objects, just like we've done a ton of times before already. So once you make it, we have to route it all up. So we're going to hop over into the textbook page, but I highly recommend just keeping this page bookmarked for your usage, because anytime you have any questions about anything in Tone, you can hop over here and find everything out about it. But under the audio section, I have a little page here called Audio Effects. And this is the idea. We have the audio source, we connect it to an effect, and we send it to the main output. This is an old graphic where they don't use this anymore, where they use toDestination. I gotta figure out how they made that so I can update it, but that's a whole other thing. So again, to make it, we have to, declare it. I recommend globally because we're going to use it in a bunch of different stuff, most likely, once you really get into it. But then we just say that, that name gets assigned to be a new tone dot whatever the effect is with its arguments. That's what we need in order to make the object. If you just want to hear it immediately, we can just say dot to destination. However, there might be other ways that you'd want to go about this. So when we're adding effects, we're gonna want to essentially plug the sound into them and connect it all up. If you don't have that direct pathway from the source to the speakers, you're not going to hear the sound. That's true in the real world with the electronics and everything needed, and the physics and the coding as well. So I've got this little example right here in the textbook. It's effect 1, 2, 3, and 4. Doesn't really matter what they are, but you'll see right here how I've set up this connecting thing, this little bit of code. And this brings up an error that you will most likely run into if you're not aware about it first, and that is that you need to make the object before you can connect to it. I'll say that again. You need to make the object before you can do anything with it at all. That may seem like common sense, but in coding, I at least always mess this up and have to rethink about it. So you'll notice that we have a sound player. It's just going to play a sound. But as far as we're going to connect it from the sound to effect 1, 2, 3, and 4, and then out to the speakers. We want, the sound to process in that way, and then we can change those parameters to change how the sound works and blah, blah, blah. But as far as the code is made, because we're also making the object in the same line, we have to go essentially in reverse order from the speakers back to the file, to the source. So if we start at the speakers, okay, we got the reverb, and then from there we're at the pitch shift, and then we go to the tremolo, and then the delay, and that's a typo. There should be two E's there, but I'm not gonna fix it right this second. You see, we're building it from the speakers back, so that way I can't even talk today anymore. I've been doing this for a few hours. Well, we're just going to go. I'm not even going to stop the recording. Because we're building them, we have to build them from the speakers backwards to the sound source, so that way we aren't trying to connect to something that hasn't been made yet. So again, if we're setting it up like this, we need to connect them all and make them essentially in the reverse order, from the speakers back to the sound source. A slightly different way is to make all of your sources and then connect them up separately. no way is better than the other. They're just slightly different. So I can, make all of them in whatever order I want. That doesn't matter at all. But then I can go down here and using the .connect methods or the .chain method, you can just say, hey, connect it like so, and it'll do it. So you can do that. Again, I like the .chain method a lot of the times if I know it's going to be in an order. So if I hopped into player and head into chain, we can then specify multiple objects in whatever order we want to. So that, again, a chain is essentially combining a bunch of connects into one thing. It's very useful. Okay. So the remainder of this video, I said it would hopefully be pretty short, is just talking about some general effects that you're most likely going to experiment with in your class as you're making different sounds. So basically what I've got here is a code showing off that example. I talk a little bit about it, and I give the various parameters for it. So there's reverb here. This one is... See, it looks like this one is actually using the JC reverb. Now that I'm actually looking at it, but we can set up you can control the various parameters as needed with that, and I'll play each one just a little bit. We can control how much of the affected sound is with the wet parameter and the room size right there. So I'll just leave it at 50 and play the sound. You can hear it's pretty reverb. This next one here is a delay. And again, this just delays the event further back in time, so you hear it, again later in the past. This one's a ping pong delay, so it ping pongs back and forth between the left and right speakers. You can control the delay time, how long between the echoes, and the percentage of the signal that gets fed back through. Again, all of these are the same. It's always name, =, new, tone dot, whatever, and then we connect it up. This one is just loading up files, and like all of them, there's a wet, dry parameter with the sliders and the buttons, and that's really all it's doing. And if I run this, we'll hear every half second. This will feed back. We'll put it at a little bit higher. That's going to go for just a little bit, but we're going to scroll down as it slowly fades into nothing and look at distortion. A distortion just kind of, it's like an electric guitar. It just kind of makes things, a little fuzzy, gritty, not quite right, a little extra edge to it. It's hard to describe distortion without getting into a lot of the math or thinking of one specific effect because it's a little bit broad. But same kind of thing. This is actually an older sketch now that I'm looking at it. But same kind of thing. We just make it new tone dot whatever, give it its parameters. You can find all those parameters by looking at the effect. So if I headed over here to distortion, tone.distortion, you can see it's got one argument under the constructor. We can see that one, that's the distortion, and tells you what it is. So we just line it all up, and here's what it sounds like. Let's play it. Here it's a little bit grittier now. A little noisier. It's like a noise. So moving along, the tremolo, again, it's just kind of a very warbly sound. We're affecting the, it's like a vibrato, so we're affecting the pitch, I believe, if I remember right. It's either the pitch or the volume. But basically, this involves modulating that sound just a little bit. I think it is the volume now that I'm really looking at it. But we basically are changing it over time. So basically we have to tell it how fast to make the effect, and then how big to make that fast effect. and that'll result in this kind of sound. right, different sound there. But as opposed to a normal gong sound, if I brought this up a lot, yeah, that's warbling instead. That's what we've got going on right there. A bit crusher reduces the bit depth of a sound, resulting in less accurate, audio replication, and it sounds just a little bit more lo-fi and noisy. That's the big goal there. And again, we just tell it how many bits between 1 and 8. So if I put this at about there and play the sound, super noisy birds, we can still kind of hear that they're birds. So again, we can make it super noisy or not. A pitch shift changes it shifts the pitch, really. Again, same thing. It's just, name, new, tone dot, whatever. And then we connect it up once we, connect the source to the effect. Again, this is outdated. These codes should have been updated already. I don't know why they're old, but it'll now be to destination there, and so we can hear it. So again, let's just shift this around. Here's the sound at normal. Cool. If I bring it up, if I bring it down, you kind of hear it already. It's just changing that pitch. It's kind of fun to move while the sound is playing, but it just changes the pitch of the sound. A chorus is fun because it delays and detunes, maybe a little bit of tremolo, in there, but it basically makes this one source sound like many sources. So we got a few parameters right here. 3 of them specifically. The frequency, how fast the vibrato, tremolo, all that stuff happens. The amount of decay time in the chorus. So again, the amount of time that we have in order to offset all the sounds, but very, very, very little time. And then again, how much depth in the overall effects, how big the sound is. So if we play this, and if I bring this all the way back up, you'll hear it sounds like there's multiple of them now. And you can customize all of these. The reason these sketches are set up here is to show that you can edit all of these effects in real time utilizing these sliders. And I'll have a whole video dedicated to sliders. I may talk back about buttons again, but it's all there. It's all in the code, this page right here where I'm at. So again, we just have to make a slider. I'm going to put all this in a separate video, but basically you make it and you assign that parameter to equal the value of the slider, and boom, Bob's your uncle. That's pretty much all of that. If I've got this effect right here, again, we can affect playback speed as well in this particular one, but if I just played... It's the same kind of thing where we're connecting it all up, but that'll be a separate video. So that's pretty much all of that right there. We've again got some more examples and code things all like that. So definitely check out all of these resources. Ooh, look, I made that video. But anyways, the goal of this is hopefully just to, trying to go back to the top of my page, hopefully just to, say, hey, there are effects. We don't have to just play sounds or synthesize sounds and output them. We can change how they sound and change that effect in real time. We can find out all of that information through the Tone reference material. And then in the textbook page that I have here, there's a few examples of some of the more common ones. But you can find all of this information in the description down below. So definitely start looking at stuff. I'm going to have a separate video dedicated just to making an effect, kind of a step-by-step process. It's essentially the same for all of the effects. It's really, really simple with Tone. And then being able to control it in real time using those sliders that I mentioned. If you want to look ahead, check out the textbook page and show me what y'all can make. I love seeing things in the comments down below when you make cool sketches. So definitely share those if you want to get that checked out. I think that's it. I'm pretty much rambling at this point, so I'm going to wrap it out. If you enjoyed the video, you learned it, definitely like, comment, subscribe, all the YouTube stuff. You know how it goes. And I'll see you all the next time that I see you. Bye.